The room was buzzing, but Sam Altman sat still, eyes fixed on the faces around the long table. It was November 2023, and the board of OpenAI, the company he had poured his soul into, was about to cast him out. The decision would stun Silicon Valley, dominate headlines, and spark a corporate drama that played out like Shakespeare with laptops. But before that storm, before the betrayals and the frantic return, there was a quieter beginning. A vision that one man and a small band of believers dared to pursue. Building an artificial intelligence that could one day be smarter than humanity itself. Sam Altman had always been a dreamer in motion. By his 20s, he'd made money with his startup Looped and gone on to run Y Combinator, shepherding the rise of tech companies like Airbnb and Dropbox. He could have stayed in that world of investors and incubators, living comfortably, mentoring ambitious 20-somethings. But something else gnawed at him. The future wasn't going to be decided by food delivery apps or social media sites. It would be decided by intelligence itself. If computers could learn to reason, to converse, to create, then the entire trajectory of human history could change. In 2015, Altman joined forces with Elon Musk, Ilya Sutskever, Greg Brockman, and a handful of others to launch OpenAI. The goal was as audacious as it was vague: to ensure artificial general intelligence, AGI, benefited all of humanity. They promised openness, transparency, and a kind of moral compass in a world where technology often raced ahead of ethics. Altman, though, was already thinking bigger. He didn't just want to publish papers. He wanted to build something that could shape civilization. OpenAI's early years were a struggle. Research labs burned money, and Altman knew he needed fuel. He convinced investors, and himself, that this wasn't just another startup. This was the Manhattan Project of the digital age. But unlike the scientists of Los Alamos, Altman had to find billions to fund his dreams. That's when Microsoft came calling. In 2019, Satya Nadella agreed to invest $1 billion into OpenAI, later expanding the partnership into tens of billions. Microsoft's Azure cloud would become the engine room for OpenAI's massive models. In return, Microsoft would gain privileged access to the most powerful AI technology on Earth. It was a masterstroke. Altman had secured the resources to train models at unprecedented scale. He was now playing on a field few could enter. The breakthrough came quietly at first. OpenAI had been releasing language models, GPT-2, GPT-3, that impressed researchers but felt abstract to the public. Then in late 2022, they unveiled a tool that wrapped the power of those models in a chat box, ChatGPT. The world erupted. Teachers complained their students were handing in AI-written essays. Lawyers asked it to draft contracts. Programmers leaned on it to debug code. Millions signed up within weeks, making it the fastest-growing consumer product in history. Altman suddenly found himself at the center of a global frenzy. Overnight, he went from a well-known investor to a household name, a kind of AI oracle. Politicians called him to testify about risks. CEOs called him to ask how to use it. Ordinary people tweeted about their late-night conversations with a machine that seemed eerily alive. ChatGPT wasn't just a product. It was a mirror, showing humanity what it might look like to speak with its own digital reflection. Altman leaned into the role. He spoke in measured tones about the promise and perils of AI. In May 2023, he testified before the U.S. Senate, warning that without safeguards, AI could be dangerous, even destabilizing to society. The irony wasn't lost on observers. Here was the man who had helped unleash this technology, now warning about it from Capitol Hill. Some saw wisdom, others saw theater. But Altman seemed to relish the duality, at once prophet and salesman, visionary and pragmatist. Meanwhile, OpenAI's valuation skyrocketed. Investors valued it at tens of billions. Microsoft integrated ChatGPT into Word, Excel, and Bing. For Altman, this was vindication. He had bet that AI could leap from lab curiosity to global utility, and he was right. But success breeds tension. And inside OpenAI, not everyone trusted Altman's instincts. November 17, 2023. The day began like any other, but it would end with chaos. That morning, Altman received a message from the board, an urgent call. When he joined, he was told the board no longer had confidence in him. Without warning, they announced his dismissal to the world. The reasons were murky, not consistently candid, was the phrase used, but speculation ran wild. Some whispered about disagreements over safety, others about power struggles between Altman and chief scientist Ilya Sutskever. The fallout was immediate. Employees were blindsided. Microsoft was blindsided. Investors panicked. Within hours, Greg Brockman, OpenAI's president and Altman's close ally, resigned in protest. By the weekend, hundreds of employees signed letters threatening to quit if Altman wasn't reinstated. Microsoft moved swiftly, offering Altman and Brockman a new division if OpenAI couldn't resolve the crisis. For 5 days, the drama consumed Silicon Valley. It was a corporate coup mixed with a hostage crisis, all playing out in real time on Twitter and Slack. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. Altman was reinstated, the board reshuffled, and the storm quieted, for now. But the message was clear: OpenAI was not just another company. It was a battlefield for the future. After his return, Altman's image changed. He wasn't just the ambitious builder anymore. He was the survivor of a palace coup, a leader hardened by betrayal. He spoke more urgently about AGI, about the responsibility to manage it wisely. He traveled the globe, meeting heads of state, warning of both opportunity and catastrophe. In some circles, he was compared to Oppenheimer, another man who helped unleash a transformative technology and then wrestled with its consequences. But Altman was not content to simply warn. He kept building. GPT-4 was released, more powerful and nuanced than its predecessor. Rumors swirled about GPT-5, about multimodal models that could see, hear, and reason. Each step brought OpenAI closer to the line between narrow AI and something resembling general intelligence. The stakes were no longer theoretical. AI was beginning to reshape economies, challenge education, and unsettle politics. And Sam Altman was at the center of it all. In the old world, wealth came from land, steel, oil. In the internet age, it came from social networks and e-commerce. But Altman represented something new. His fortune wasn't tied to material resources, but to intelligence itself, to the ability to teach silicon how to think. He was, in a sense, a new kind of alchemist, turning code into gold, turning words into power. And yet, even as his status rose, he remained enigmatic. He lived simply compared to some billionaires, often speaking in understated tones, his eyes scanning the horizon of possibility. Friends described him as relentless, a man who saw the world not just as it was, but as it might be. For Altman, OpenAI wasn't just a company. It was the lever with which he hoped to move the world. The story of Sam Altman and OpenAI is still unfolding. Will AI prove to be humanity's greatest invention, or its most dangerous? Will OpenAI remain a beacon of cautious progress, or will competition push it into reckless acceleration? Altman doesn't pretend to know all the answers, but he has made his wager clear. The future belongs to intelligence, and he intends to be at the forefront of shaping it. For now, the world watches, sometimes with awe, sometimes with fear, as this quiet-spoken visionary steers the course of an invention as profound as fire. Sam Altman sits at the heart of the storm, the unlikely protagonist of a drama larger than himself. His story is one of ambition, risk, betrayal, and resilience. And whatever comes next, whether triumph or tragedy, his name will be etched into the history of how humanity built a mind outside its own. The age of OpenAI has only just begun.